Australia, home to stunning beaches, vibrant cities, and a housing crisis that's turning dreams into nightmares. For young Australians, owning a home feels as impossible as winning the lottery. Just think about this. In Sydney, you'd need to earn almost 300,000 Australian dollars a year to afford the average home. But guess what? Most households make less than half of that. And in Melbourne, you'd still need $170,000, which might as well be a fantasy for most people. And renting? It's no better. Average rents in Sydney have soared past $3,000 a month, with Brisbane close behind at $2,500. That's over half the median household income in these cities. The competition is brutal. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of applicants for a single rental. Open houses feel more like chaotic job fairs, with hopeful renters lining up around the block for a shot at basic shelter. With wages stuck and housing costs spiraling, the dream of homeownership isn't just fading, it's slipping out of reach entirely. Since 2020, house prices have soared by 40% nationwide, 50% in Brisbane and Adelaide, while wages remain stagnant. For many Australians, buying a home feels like chasing a mirage. A big part of the problem is Australia's obsession with sprawling suburbs. About 76% of the population is packed into just 18 cities, even though the country has vast, open land. Take Melbourne. It stretches across 9,900 square kilometers, yet houses a fraction of the people living in much smaller cities like Mexico City. Australians love their space, but this low-density lifestyle comes at a steep price. It creates bottlenecks. So why not just build more apartments? Well, that's easier said than done. No one wants high-rises next door. It's the classic not in my backyard mentality. Add layers of red tape to the mix, and building approvals drag on endlessly. In 2023, only 170,000 homes were built, the lowest number in a decade. Meanwhile, immigration surged, piling even more pressure onto an already strained market. Picture this: 100 desperate renters vying for a single modest apartment. The viewing feels more like an auction, with bids flying and nerves fraying. And the winner? They don't get their dream home, just a roof at any cost. The contradiction couldn't be clearer. Australia welcomes more people than ever, but refuses to build enough homes. Poor urban planning, outdated policies, and relentless demand have trapped the housing market in a crisis. For millions of Australians, especially younger generations, the dream of owning a stable home feels like it's slipping further and further out of reach. Immigration is always a hot topic in Australia, and it's impossible to ignore its role in the housing crisis. In 2022 alone, 740,000 people moved here. That's the biggest influx in modern history. For a country of just 26.7 million, that's massive. And with 70% of newcomers renting, it's no surprise rental prices are through the roof. Here's where it hits hardest: the rental market. With 70% of these newcomers renting, they're directly competing with locals for an already limited supply of properties. In suburbs like southeast Melbourne and western Sydney, where many immigrants settle, rental prices have jumped 18% in a single year. And because immigrants are often willing to share cramped spaces to stretch their budgets, this only fuels demand and prices even more. The result? A market where finding an affordable place to rent feels like winning the lottery. For many locals, it's more than just rising prices. It's the stark reality of being pushed aside, left to wonder if they'll ever find a place to call home. The housing crisis? It's not just about soaring prices. It runs much deeper. It's a failure of urban planning and outdated policies that haven't kept pace with reality. For decades, Australia has stuck to sprawling suburbs, and while the big backyards and open streets sound great, they've left cities like Sydney and Melbourne completely unprepared for population growth. With only 2,000 people per square kilometer, these cities are miles behind global hotspots like London or Munich. That suburban dream Australians hold so dearly? It's now a roadblock, choking the housing supply at its core. And then there's the bureaucracy. Want to build a home in New South Wales? Be ready to wait. Think about this. Getting approval for a single-family home in New South Wales can drag on for over 3 months. Meanwhile, in Texas, they'd get it done in just a week. Frustrating, isn't it? It's no wonder construction rates are 40% below what's needed to meet demand for affordable housing. As if that's not enough, land values have tripled since 2020, thanks to a scarcity that's been mostly designed into the system. Sure, this is great for existing homeowners watching their property values soar, but for younger Australians, it's a massive barrier, locking them out of the market completely. Australia's housing crisis reflects a generational divide, perpetuated by outdated policies and stagnation. Without bold reforms, streamlining approvals, embracing higher density housing, and rethinking urban planning, the dream of owning a home will remain exactly that, a dream. Tax policies are another key piece of Australia's housing crisis, a piece that often goes unnoticed but plays a massive role in fueling inequality. What was once designed to encourage investment has instead created a playground for real estate speculators, deepening the divide between generations. Negative gearing, a tax strategy you won't find in most places, was introduced in the 1930s to solve a housing shortage. Sounds great, right? Here's how it works. If you lose money on a rental property, you can deduct those losses from your taxable income. So someone earning $85,000 a year but losing $10,000 on a property gets taxed as if they only made $75,000. Smart? Maybe. Fair? Not really, because the ones who benefit the most are older, wealthier Australians who already own property. And it doesn't stop there. Policies since the 1980s have made it ridiculously easy for investors to buy more properties. Rental income taxed at just 15%? Check. A 50% capital gains tax discount? Double check. It's like the system was designed to hand out rewards to speculators while making it harder for first-time buyers to even step onto the property ladder. Together, these policies create a speculator's paradise, costing taxpayers $8 billion a year while locking younger Australians out of the market. Critics are spot on. These policies don't just reward speculation, they punish first-time buyers, leaving them out of the race before it even begins. Australia's tax incentives may have started with good intentions, but they've turned housing into a wealth-building machine for the few, while leaving countless others struggling. These policies have turned homes into a playground for profit, shutting out countless Australians. Real reform isn't just necessary, it's overdue. Australia's obsession with real estate isn't just reshaping the housing market, it's pulling the economy into a troubling spiral. Productivity, once the engine of prosperity, has slowed to a crawl. Imagine this. From 2010 to 2020, labor productivity grew by just 1.1% annually, a fraction of what it used to be. Why? Instead of funding innovation and industries with lasting impact, Australia has been busy fueling its real estate addiction. Here's the kicker. In 2022, only 1.7% of Australia's GDP went to research and development. Compare that to the OECD average of 2.4%, or the leaps being made by the US and Germany. While they're inventing the future, Australia is stuck in the past, sinking resources into a housing bubble that offers quick gains but leaves the economy hollow. The fallout? Stagnant wages, limited job opportunities, and soaring living costs. Per capita GDP has barely moved in a decade, and for many Australians, it feels like the economy is leaving them behind. Meanwhile, tax policies only make things worse. Corporate taxes are among the highest in the OECD, yet real estate investors enjoy generous tax breaks, further fueling speculation. As Charlie Munger famously said, "Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcomes." In Australia, the message is clear. Hoard land, profit from speculation, and let real growth take a back seat. The real question is, how much longer can this fragile bubble hold before it bursts? It's tempting to blame the government in charge, but let's be real. This crisis has been building for decades. Prices started rising under Paul Keating, then exploded under John Howard, doubling in value. Since then, every government has promised change, but none have delivered. By the time Anthony Albanese stepped in, the damage was done. To put it in perspective, a home bought in 1992 for $500,000 is now worth $2.4 million. If you were born after 1992, you're likely renting, with little chance of owning a home anytime soon. This isn't about one leader or one party. It's about a broken system that's let Australians down for decades. Homes have lost their meaning as places to live. They're now just chips in a high-stakes investment game. Fixing this won't be easy, and it's not about empty promises or quick fixes. It's going to take bold action, policies that put people first, where homes are homes again, not just assets. The real challenge? Finding leaders with the courage to act before it's too late. So where does this leave us? Australia's housing crisis isn't just a story about numbers. It's a story about people. It's about younger generations questioning if they'll ever have a place to call their own. It's about families stretching their budgets to breaking point just to keep a roof over their heads. And it's about a nation standing at a crossroads. Either continue down this unsustainable path or commit to the bold decisions needed to build a fairer, more stable future. The solutions are clear: smarter urban planning, fairer tax policies, streamlined development processes, and a renewed focus on innovation and productivity. But without the courage to implement these solutions, they're just empty ideas. This crisis isn't just about housing. It's about the values that shape Australia's identity. Will it remain a land of locked doors for the many, or will it rebuild itself as a nation where every citizen has a fair shot at stability and security? The time for empty debates has passed. It's time for bold action to rebuild trust, restore fairness, and make the Australian dream a reality once again.